not my skill set, nor do I want to learn it.
Sometimes, because I put up stuff which I kind of test
in the wilderness. I don't know if I was the best one to teach them that. However, and although it was a really
that when you said, I was like, oh,
the baby out with the bathwater.
I do know where that.
So for me, rather than doing something half-heartedly or like just half. Happened to me.
Hello. So one thing about us as the queens of the BBs, and I'm calling us the queens of the BBs, the two barbers, is that we are very open when it comes to things that happen in our life, because we want to make sure that you got a connection with us. So I'm going to say my side before we introduce ourselves, because I think this is a good lead in to what about health, making sure you're built up health wise, because sometimes you get stressed real quickly on something that happens, and then you can go into that panic mode. And this is what we're going to talk about a little bit today with our guests. So I'm going to start off first. I'm going to let Barbara Ellison tell her story. It just happened to her. So what happened to me, every time I do recordings, every time I want to do a Zoom meeting, every time I have to reboot my computer because Zoom wants to talk to me and say, you need to reboot. And I'm looking at them saying, why? It's like every time I can see, maybe, sometimes when they're doing updates and all, I get that. I get that. But every time, Miss Wonderful Queen Barbara on the side of me, I got pissed because I'm like, this is ridiculous. Because every time I have a client or something, I'm the one. And sometimes I get on 15 minutes early just so I can reboot quickly and be ready. Right. Zoom don't like that, because the time that happens when I'm supposed to bring on the guest, it comes around and says, you got to reboot. And I've been in there for 15 minutes already.
Right.
So, I do the Usha moment. See, you got to get physically fit for this because you can go, woo. And then today when we start our show.
So today, this was Barb. Barb had to have her Usha moment to bring her back down, and because she had to reboot her computer. Just as we started the show, my internet went down. I'm like, okay, it's all gone. Totally had to restart my computer.
Yes.
So, we love technology. We really do. I love technology, and I am so grateful for it. So I have decided one of my favorite sayings now is that I love technology when it works, and I love technology when it doesn't. So this morning was one of those times where it didn't quite work the way we wanted it to. And yet, you know what? Here we are, persevering, because sometimes we know that our message is so much more important than the mess we find ourselves in at any given moment. And because so often we take better care of our work things than we do ourselves, which is kind of the subject of today.
Yes.
Is that, because we prioritize business goals, we prioritize deadlines, and guess what goes on the back burner? Our health, our personal well-being, all of those things.
Yes.
And so we have got a great guest today. So stay with us, because that's exactly what she helps people do, especially high performers and high achievers, and especially women. Because guess what, ladies? We tend to do it more than, because we so often, I think I hear from people that, well, you know what, men can do it and get away with it, but women, we have to work a little harder. Yeah, well, no, not necessarily. We don't have to work harder. We have to work smarter. So that's my little thing. The thing today about, just, well.
I love how you said, just going into it before we bring our guest up a little time here, that we're discussing this, is I love how you said everything has to be in a certain balance. I'm not saying, because I know things go out of balance. We understand that. We get that. That's life sometimes, right? Yeah. But when you can come out of balance, you can feel it. Either if you're in a spiritual unbalance, if you're in a mind, basically mindset, body wise, health wise, personal wise,
Yeah.
all that. If it gets all, then things can start to, you know, go into what your daily routines.
Right.
So I'm glad that we have those tools like Dr. Alexis is going to be talking about, because you need those tools to move you every day. You know, like health wise, just this is my savior sometimes. It is.
Exactly.
I mean, because it keeps you what? It keeps you, hydrated.
Keeps you hydrated, keeps you running. Yeah.
Keeps you. And it's certain things, just start off with little things first, because a lot of people just want to just jump at everything when it comes to the physical and stuff. And I'm a person that I did that before and it didn't work. So I was like, let me just take one thing and be consistent on a daily basis and let that go, then add to it.
And exactly. Because we expect our bodies to work like high performance and well-oiled machines. And yet internally we're running on fumes. And I have said so many times is that, like, you know what? I've been burning the candle at both ends and can't believe I'm at the center. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, Barb, you gotta stop. You gotta stop. Take a break. Because we do that so often. So my question for everybody listening right now, when was the last time you gave yourself the same attention, yourself, the same attention as you give to your work?
Inquiring minds want to know.
Inquiring minds. So I mean, and if you're listening to this, put a comment in the chat, or send us a message that says, hey, you know what? That's me. That was me burning the candle at both ends and couldn't figure out why I got to the middle. Well, Barb, when was the last time you took a break?
Yeah.
I'm going to tell on myself. I have a smartwatch. And one day I was talking about having to set a timer to make sure that I stand up. And several friends looked at me and said, well, don't you have a timer on your watch that tells you to stand when it's time to stand up? I said, yes, I do. But I can ignore my watch. I can't ignore a timer that's set across the room that won't go off. And they went, oh, I see your point. Because I love what I do. I love talking to people. I love doing the creative things that I do.
Yeah, it's funny you talked about the watch and, reminding you of standing up. So what I do now, I do that because you told me that. So see, that was wisdom that you gave me. The second thing I do is, in the mornings when I have to get up at a certain time, usually I set my alarm on my phone and it's like right next to me, it goes off and then I hit the snooze and it goes off and I hit the snooze. Now what I do is I take the phone and I put it in the kitchen and I'm in the bedroom where I can hear it. And and I let it snooze, I say, okay, let this thing go like 8 times because eventually I'm going to get my butt up. I'm just going to say it like that and cut it off because it's getting on my nerves. So when I get up, now I got up and I'm moving. I'm not just sitting next to it doing this. Yeah.
You're moving.
And believe me, bro, there's been many times in the morning I was like, oh, I wish it would shut up, but I got to shut it off.
You have to get up and do it. And yes, that's the thing. So many people don't realize that the connection between moving, being healthy, having clarity, and what we talk about all the time is having purpose. They're all connected. We are not, it's not separate things. So much of our physical is so deeply rooted in emotional and physical, and guess what that affects us? It affects how we make decisions. Ooh.
Yeah. When you don't get that, I mean, I've learned the hard way. I mean, when I don't get enough sleep, I feel it really hard time during the day when I'm working. I was like, okay, Barbie, you didn't get enough sleep because you're going down like a wildfire. You're just like, and then you're trying to think of stuff, and then everything's coming, and you see how that reaction is like a snowball effect. Just because I didn't get that sleep that I needed to get. And I said, now I cut myself off, Barbara. In fact, my body cuts itself off. It tells me, okay, you know what? I'm tired. You can sit here and try to do a project all you want at 12 o'clock midnight. I'm not doing it with you. So it puts me to sleep. And it has been doing that for a while now, Barbara. I mean, it's like 9:30 hits and all of a sudden I'm like, I'm done.
Yeah. Okay, I'm done.
I'm done.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's so often because the times that I do push myself past that, I'm not as productive.
Nope.
I end up having to do it again anyways, because you're not thinking clearly. You're not making a rational decision. You're not showing up in your full essence. Why do it? Duh. You end up redoing it anyways.
And you know what? That's time waster. And one thing we both always say is we can't waste time because you can't get it back. So now you just spent time half doing it because you were tired or whatever. You got to get it next day and say, okay, this wasn't right anyway. Then you got to redo it or fix it or
you got to redo it.
Change up. Yeah. It's like, okay, what did I just do here?
Why did I do that?
What did I do?
You know, we think about it afterwards and it's like, what possessed me to do that? But you only see it after the fact. Now I've gotten, and I think that's what one of the things that Dr. Alexa really hones in on with her clients is the awareness that you're doing it.
Yeah.
Just be aware of what your limits are.
Yeah.
Those kinds of things. Because when we feel well, we're going to think more clearly. We're going to act more confidently. And we're going to show up in our lives.
Yeah. And because we're thinking more clearly. And now we just like how you said, I just want to go by real quickly before we bring on the queen, is that I like how you always say, are you moving from reaction to proactive living? Because a lot of times we react to everything because, we got to react to it because things are going whatever. Yeah. But how about if we take a step back, like you said, Barbara, and understand that what's going on with our body and say, okay, I'm going to proactive activate this, not just react to everything. And it gets crazy. Then you see that's what you call drama in your life. That's what I tell people. That's it.
Right. And you know what else it's called? Stress.
Well, that's part of the drama.
Yes. Burnout. Brain fog. All of these things, we blame it on all of those things, and yet it's us that's doing it. Because we're not taking care of ourselves.
Looks like you said, I just thought about this call when you said it's us. It's like, it's not nobody else like doing it right now. It's you, me, myself, and I, the three of us.
Exactly. And that's what our guest today is, Dr. Alexa Martin. She specializes in exactly what we're talking about.
Yes, she does.
She has some great tips for us to help us step out of, what it is, we get into survival mode. Oh, if I don't get this done, I don't get this done.
Right.
And then all of a sudden we're like, oh, brother. And we wonder why we get sick.
Yeah, and you wonder why you got stressed, why your back is sore, why your
back is sore,
just neck hurt, this and that. Well, you just put yourself in a stress zone.
Yes, exactly. So let's live our lives with energy and vibrancy and purpose. So, anyways, we're excited. Stay tuned. Dr. Alexa Martin is coming on next.
Yes, we're going to bring the queen on. We're going to give some sponsors some love first, and then we'll bring on the queen, Alexa.
Good Friday, everyone. Your real worth isn't defined by your net worth. What makes you valuable is how you use what you have been given. All of us have gifts. Make sure you're making the most of yours. Have an amazing Friday.
It is now the bottom of the hour. I'm excited to welcome Nancy Matthews to our program today. Nancy is an author of a book. I'm going to go ahead and highlight it in the carousel for you guys. There it is, The One Philosophy. I want to talk to Nancy not only about the re-release of the book, but also what it's been like for her to share the message with all of you guys. Nancy, great to have you on with us.
Hello, hello, hello. So happy to be here.
Hello, hello. We are back with Time to Shine Happiness Show, the second part of it, where we bring on some wonderful, amazing experts and guests that's really talking about maybe the topics me and the other BB is talking about, Barbara Ellison. And today we have a wonderful, amazing queen here, as I call Lady Queens because they're royalty, Dr. Alexa Martin, MD. Yes, we have, class in the house. We got a doctor in the house. So thank you so much, Dr. Alexa. And just before we even start, lady, one thing I like to do is to really figure out, okay, how did you get to be this like awesome doctor that you're helping so many people navigate through their health? Because if the passion is there, I know it is because that's why you do it. So just tell us a little bit about that before we get into some questions.
Yeah, so thank you both for having me. I'm really excited to be here today. And so, yes, I'm a board certified physician, and the journey to get to this whole body medicine practice that I do for the body, mind, body, and soul came about mainly from primary care. So my background is a traditional primary care physician, having 15, sometimes 20 minutes with my patients, anywhere from 22 to 24 patients a day, basically working on preventative care. And for me, it was one of those things where I was seeing my patients, I was treating the issues that they were coming in with, but there wasn't really a whole lot of time for anything else. So anytime someone asked me about stress or family or relationships or nutrition or lifestyle, I knew I always had 5 patients waiting out there for me. And so even when I wanted to dive a little bit deeper into some of those issues, I couldn't. And I know a lot of other family practitioners and primary care doctors, they feel the same way. And so when I was building my practice Intuitive MD, I wanted to find a way to really give back that hour to my patients so that we could really deep dive into what's going on with their care. And so it was really motivated by that, being able to deep dive into your health and this idea that everything counts, right? And so if I'm only looking at the biological, the body, the problem-based solutions, that we're missing so much that makes your life happier and more enriched.
Yeah, love that. I love the preventative part of it that you jumped into, doctor, because it's like we were just saying earlier, so important if we can, work on that before it gets to the survivor mode when we're just like in the hospital, or it's like, okay, you got to do this or else. Because I've been there we all kind of been, Barbara has too, a couple times where it's like, okay, we didn't take care of ourselves and now we got to deal with the outcome of what we didn't do. So it's very important to do those just making sure what you're doing. Yes, definitely.
Yeah. And I'm at Dr. Alexa on LinkedIn. We just, because we're like-minded. We want people to live better lives. Of just having that unlimited wellness that makes you, like we talked about, just of having your heart sing with what you're doing. Well, so many people are just caving into stress and they're not even aware that it is stress. So that's when we've just been exchanging, messages back and forth. Like, I love what you're doing. Oh, this liking and commenting. And it was like, I need to have Dr. Alexa on the show. So here she is. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I like the 2 points that you guys meant about prevention. Let's, sort of make sure that we can figure out what's going on with you on an individual level. So everything I do is personalized to the person, right? We all have bodies, but our body is made specifically for you. And so there is not going to be a plan that I can just give anyone and just say it's going to work for all bodies and all lifestyles. So there's that preventative part. And then there's really that figuring out what's going to make you happy you, what's going to make your heart, your soul sing, right? With your life purpose. And how do we kind of merge those two things? And there's ways in which we can do it. I think, Barbara, you mentioned this point about the idea of like, let's get you to a point before you're in an emergency. And so, we talked about these tips earlier that I was going to mention for you guys, these 5 essential tips for sustainable change. And that's one of the first ones. The first one is this, I call it a GPS method. You want to know where you are right now. Right. And this is something that anyone can do, right? So tip 1 is figure out where you are from 1 to 5. Are we in an emergency situation, which is a 5? That we have to change whatever's going on right now. And sometimes that might be that somebody who's been stressed out has now got to a place where their blood pressure is so high that they're in danger of having a stroke or having a heart attack, or they're not functioning. So you're at work, but you're at burnout level where you don't need to change things now. You need a break. We need a sabbatical yesterday. And so really have to assess, where are you in your chain, in the where you are. Is this a pain point that needs to be addressed right now, or is this something that we can take some time to work through? And so you mentioned that in the prevention, you first have to know where you are. You can't go somewhere, and if we ever use your GPS, you got to know where you are first before you can set the destination.
Yes, definitely. I love it. I was going to say, Doctor, before you go to the 5, because I'm writing down these points. Believe me, this is teaching she's teaching me here. But I like what you said, where you're now. I just want to add to that by just saying, because just looking, I'm using myself as example so I don't get nobody else in trouble. But you have to really be true to yourself on where you're at right now, too. A lot of times we want to, kind of like shove it to the side or say, oh, it's just this. It's nothing, I'm good, and all that kind of stuff. And then things still keep happening. And you get the signals. You're the signals in your body. And we tend to either listen to them and say, okay, I need to get to Dr. Martin or somebody, or saying, yeah, that's okay. I'm okay. I just have to take
ignore it.
Or ignore it. So I like how you said, understanding where are you at right now, and be true to yourself where you at right now. Yeah.
And the thing is, if you don't really know where you are right now, talk to the people closest to you. They'll tell you. That's where you sometimes have somebody say, you need a break. You've been grouchy for weeks now. They will tell you exactly, what's going on. Or you can see somebody like me that's saying, okay, let's look at everything. And these are the 3 most important things that we really need to work on. So, don't be afraid if you're not really quite sure and you can't be that honest with yourself. Everybody else that knows around you the things that kind of need to be improved. Along with what you said is being honest with yourself is tip number 2. This is about mindset. What is your readiness for change? So I have a lot of people that will come to me and they'll have some goals or a problem or a pain point they want to fix, but they may not be ready for all of the changes that come with really diving into a solution. And so again, you want to rate yourself from 1 to 5. And if you're at, 1 or 2, that may not be a problem, a goal, or solution you may want to pursue at this time, because you're really not invested in all of the things that would need to happen to make it change. Now, if you're at a 4 or 5, let's go, right? So it means that you're really ready for all of the things that you do to get to where you need to go. So that really is being honest with yourself. And I always tell people when they're doing those numbers, go with that first little number that pops up in your head. That's your intuition. That's your gut sense. It knows exactly where you are in this process. And that's going back to being honest with yourself, right?
I like that. Yeah, I'm glad I was close. See, I was over, you were getting to 2 and I already kind of thought about that.
And it's so true. And sometimes it can be in a fun thing too. I remember one time I decided that I was going to retire. And so that was good. I was going to retire because, I was at that age and I should retire. I lasted 3 months. Finally, my husband at the time and kids came and said, Mom, we're having a meeting. And it was like, okay, what are we meeting about? You're going back to work because you are driving us crazy. You need an outlet. Being at home is not enough. You need to go do something. Get a job tomorrow. And I went, really? But I didn't see it. I didn't see it in me, but they saw it in me. They said, Mom, go back to work. Like tomorrow, because they saw that something was missing and I was trying to fill it with so many other things rather than something that I really enjoyed doing. And I love what I do. And it was just the funniest thing because they came to me. So there was just that fond memory. Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, sometimes just, yeah.
And I think that goes right nicely into that third step, which is be the curious observer. And I say be the curious observer of yourself, because a lot of us, and I will point to myself, I'm very good at managing everybody else. But when it comes to my things, and that is for you, when you talked about retirement, it may be, that there were things about being retired that would have made it better for you, right? And so that's about really observing your day. And if you don't know where to start, I usually tell people, in any situation, start asking yourself, what would make this better?
Right.
If you, are in a meeting with somebody and you don't feel great, what would have made that better? Maybe it's that the meeting time for you is a time when maybe you have a slump in the day. So you have a slump every day at around 3 p.m. and you're going to be reaching for a cookie, that may not be the best time to schedule that important meeting at 2:30, right? And so you start looking through your day, and that's what I started to do when I was working in a busy clinic. I was there from 7:30, sometimes to 5:36 at night. And in the Midwest, in the fall, it gets really dark.
Yes.
And so I was coming in and it was dark when I would get into the office and it was dark when I leave, and I would see the sun through a window that did not give us any light during the day. And I would sometimes think like, oh, it'd be so nice to take a walk. It's 11 a.m. I would really like to take a walk. And I didn't know I was doing this process of thinking about what would make my day better. And that would be having that autonomy. And so I want people to start really observing themselves. It's easy to start pointing to everyone else and saying, this is what you need to do. But turn that, curiousness back on yourself and start asking the why questions. If you eat something you don't feel great, what was it about that food? Was it the time? Was it that this is a food that we know makes me gassy every time and I should not pair it at that 2:30 meeting right before my 3 p.m. slump? And all of these things are going to be things that over time are going to start helping you figure out what's going to make you happy, what's going to help you design your ideal life, right?
Yeah. I was going to say, Dr. Mar, I was thinking about what you said about going back to what would make this meeting better. When you were saying that, in the back of my mind, I was like, not meeting with that person I met with.
And that might be the thing, right? And
that might be it.
And that might be it. And that might be something to put on your schedule. I'm not meeting with this person again, or having an out for yourself. Part of the reason I set up, my 15-minute complimentary meetings with anyone that needs to talk to me is because I have an out. There's been times I've been stuck in a meeting. I was like, I did not know that I took this meeting, and I'm with a sales rep, and I'm waiting. And so if it was a 30-minute or an hour meeting, I said I can always extend the time. I always give some breathing room. And if I'm really enjoying my conversation, I've met with both of you separately during these meetings, and I think we went over on both times, because if you're really connecting with somebody, you can. But it may be redesigning those meetings so that they're a little bit shorter, so that you don't get stuck in a meeting with somebody that maybe is going to kind of chew away at your time.
That is, I'm glad that's like a mic drop, what you just said, Dr. Martin, because I have had, that's why I mentioned that, because I had meetings where I thought it was supposed to be a connection, networking type of thing, just getting to know maybe how we collaborate. And it turned into them selling me something, or straight selling me something, we didn't even get a chance to even know each other for 5 minutes. It's like, can we at least do 5 minutes here? And I was like, dang, how do I get out of this? So, I don't, thank you for, I'll tell him, I said, thank you for telling me what you do and everything. But just doing a sales call, I wish I would have knew that, because I wanted to kind of get to know you, you get to know me. So I'm glad that you said that you have to, those 15 minutes is really important, because that kind of tells you, okay, this is where we're at with this particular individual. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I had one of those calls a couple of weeks ago, and I came off it and I called my girlfriend. I said, I've just been hosed. She was like, what happened? And I said, it was just a fire hose of, you need to do, the da, 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 da. And I'm like, I think I said maybe 5 words, and but I'm polite.
Yeah.
I'm polite.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I kind of let her kind of just continue, and then came off of it and said, okay, yeah, I've been hosed.
Yeah, I mean, this goes perfectly into the next step, which is building that toolbox so that you can create an environment for success. Like you, I am very polite. I was taught to be polite and agreeable. And so I have set my schedule up in a way because I know I'm wimpy about getting out of these situations. And so, the situation that you have, you've earned it based off of the tools you use to build it. And so if you don't like the tools, you can start redesigning your toolbox however you want to build the ideal body, life, or relationship or intentionality about your life that you want.
I love that. Yeah, because you're in charge of your tools.
Yeah. You create those boundaries. Yeah.
And sometimes we do come into this world with tools that maybe we did. I always joke that when we're talking about your toolbox, right, you're going to inherit tools from your parents. And some of them aren't even tools. They may have been things that they used as tools that aren't, they used a heavy shoe as a hammer, but it's not really a hammer. But as an adult, we can choose which tools we want to keep and which ones we don't. And if it's not working, that's where that observing, that auditing your life, seeing what's working, what's not working, and, figuring out what do you need to really get there, right?
And I think it starts with, what do you want for your life? If you're not happy right now with something that's happening in your life, there's a reason.
100%. And I think you hit on it earlier. These are signals for change. And I tell people we live in a 3D world. And so a lot of those signals are going to happen physically. You're not sleeping. You just don't feel like. I've had so many people come to me and say, I just don't feel good. And I feel like I'm doing everything right. I think I eat healthy. And I tell them it's not just about the food that you're ingesting or the movement. It can be, if you're stressed out, that's going to age you. That's going to decrease your longevity in a way that, no amount of kale is going to mitigate, right? And so these are the things that you have to look at. And if you're not feeling great, even if everyone says you're winning, that is enough of a reason to get help.
Right. That's good. I'm glad you said that, Dr. Martin. That's really good, because I know when I went to the doctor a few months ago to do my checkup, and the doctor said, you're stressed. And I'm like, no, I'm not. He said, yes, you are. We were back and forth for like 1 minute. I was like, okay, because that's how I've been knowing him forever. So we do that. That's the game we play. He said, yes, you are, Barbara. And I'm like, but I don't feel stressed. And he said, it's not about just the feeling. He said, I can just sense it with your body and how things are. So that opened up a door for me, because I was thinking I wasn't stressed. I didn't think that, I was okay, but then when I went there, and they started testing, doing something, they said, no, you have stress in your body. So like you just said, Dr. Martin, you might not even realize it. And then when somebody else tell you like, oh, that's why this is happening, or that's why, because he made me started thinking about, during my day, how do I feel? How is my mind working at work and this and that? I was kind of telling him, well, sometimes I'm just over here, over there. And then sometimes I'd be like, and then sometimes he said, yeah, you're. So when he was listening to me, I said, after we had that talk, I said, you know what? You're right. I didn't even realize it till we walked through my day. Yeah.
Right. Right. That's like I have a book called Feel Outrageously Alive, and I just have people fill out a little form before I send it to for them to get access to it. And one of the things is, do you just feel off and don't know why?
Yeah.
How often has that happened? You just feel off. There's no real reason for it. You're just feeling off. That's your body's way of saying, help, help, Barb, listen, help.
Exactly. And I would say that we also, our idea of stress is a little skewed. So I always say that we're not aiming for a stress-free life.
No.
You need a little bit of stress to grow, right? We don't want chronic stress. I always say you want a stress light life. And the other thing is, I think sometimes women don't think about, men do this too, but I feel like the extra burden, the invisible load tends to be on women a little bit harder in our society, is that you sometimes are giving from not your overflow, but your reserves. Yeah. And when you don't have reserves left, you stress your body. Think about it. If you were at your home and every time you went to make a meal and you didn't have enough food to make the meal, and there was no other way of getting more food, you'd be stressed out. And over time, you're going to have less and less and less and less and less. And it would look ridiculous for you just to keep trying to make food out of nothing. But this is what we do. And so when the body doesn't have these extra reserves, we get inflammation. We have a hard time getting rid of some of the, even something as basic as cancer cells. We're constantly making cancer cells in our body. But if your body has no reserves left because you're constantly saying, I'm running from a lion all day long, and that's not what we're meant to be, and then you're over giving whatever you have left to everyone. And so that's the extra component of stress that people don't realize. You're over giving and you don't have anything left at the end of the day, and you're giving yourself what's left of your willpower, you're giving yourself what's left of your energy. You are in a chronically stressed state because you don't have reserves left.
Right. That's a great way of putting it. I love that.
Yeah.
So often we do that, but I've never thought of it that way. Is that instead of giving out of our overabundance, we're giving out of our reserves. I like that. I'm going to use that. Thank you.
And you won't have that much reserves. You might not even have that many reserves.
And we might not have any reserves.
Yes. Wow, that was good.
And so that goes into my final step, which is invest in yourself. And that's not always about money. So I think when people hear invest in themselves, they're like, oh, well, what sort of program is somebody selling me? It's not always about that. It's now that you know where you are, how ready you are for change. You start observing yourself, you're auditing your life. What are the things I want more of? What are the things I want less of? And then figuring out, well, what do I need to actually build this life? Then you need to invest, whether that's the time. Maybe you need to learn something you haven't learned before, or maybe that is working with somebody, or finding a partner that can help you if you want to be on a workout journey. But once you know what's going to work for you, then it's really about investing the time. And if you kind of can complete those 5 things, anyone can use these tips today to start tackling some of those goals or some of those problems or, endeavors that you want to do. But that's the biggest step that I think sometimes people miss. And I always say the doing is not in the buying. So I've met so many people who will buy a program and, it's an online exercise program or something like that. And I will ask them, well, has online programs worked for you before? And they say, no, I've got, Beachbody. I've got all of this stuff sitting in my home. And I'm like, but you just purchased another one. And so that's really about knowing yourself and setting yourself up for success, right? If you know something hasn't worked well in the past, how would it work better for me? And a lot of times when I've challenged people, it may be that they really do need to work with somebody in person. And I challenged one client and she ended up finding a personal trainer that lived down the street and was really flexible with time. And so that worked with her schedule. And then she didn't have to worry about 6 months later feeling like a failure because she spent all of this money and she really didn't get through the program. It wasn't her. It was that that's not the right approach for you. And so you really have to be honest with yourself and don't set yourself up in the shame guilt cycle because it didn't work for you.
Yeah.
Maybe that's not the right process for you.
Another mic drop, doctor, because I did it. I mean, you just, it's like you're on my street here. You're talking about me because I know with exercise, just use this example for myself. I don't like going to the gym with a lot of people in it. That's just not who I don't like it. And I was trying to push because we would say, go to the gym, you got to go to the gym. And every time I'd be stressed, I'd be stressed trying to go to the gym. I said, this is crazy. But one thing I did find out that I like for two things. I like dancing. And I like having a personal one-on-one trainer where the accountability is there because I said, Barbara, what's always worked for you? Like you just said, doctor, what works for you? And I asked myself that question, what works for me that's going to get me to a point where I am going to some time of exercise? And I said, well, dancing is one, just regular dancing around the house or whatever. And two, getting a personal trainer because Barbara, that was me talking to myself, that you need an accountability person to say, okay, did you do the reps? Did you do this? Did you do that? That's how I always learn. So I found out I had to do that. And when I did the personal trainer, I stayed on track. So like you just said, you have to know yourself and what works for you, not for the other people, because it might work for them that way, but it might not work for you that way. Sure. Yeah. That was good. I love that. Wow. So see, this is, I can talk to you, doctor, forever.
One thing here, Dr. Alexa is ready, has a book coming out.
Oh, she does? Okay.
It's in the process of, so I told her we'll have her back when she's ready to publish.
Oh yeah, definitely. We got to help you. Yeah. Put that out there.
Yeah. So these tips are going to be part of that book and all of these things so that you can just take the methodology that I use when I do my one-on-one work with people and when I do my seminars, that you will have access to this and answer all of those questions. And so, yes, I'm working on that right now. It's going to be my first book. And it was because somebody said, hey, why don't you write a book? And so I was like, I would love to do that because part of my mission is really to empower people with their health and their lives. I'm not trying to be in a place where people need somebody like me forever. I want you to be able to get the tools and know how to change your life because lives are dynamic, right? What might work for you now may not work in 10 years or 20 years.
Right.
Exactly. And so I want you to be apologetically you. I want you to be authentic to you and design your ideal life. What do you see yourself doing? How are you going to be happy? How are you going to be fulfilled in this life, no matter what age or stage you're at?
Right. Love it, love it, love it. Thank you so much, doctor. And just let everybody know, I'm going to put a little shout out to Dr. Martin too, because I did meet with her one-on-one. And I'm coming because she really was gentle with me. She basically let me think about some things that I need to do for myself and my own physical body and everything. And yes, you need to meet for 15 minutes is powerful. So I would advise everybody to do a 15-minute call with the Dr. Martin because she brings stuff out that you didn't even think about. And I was like, oh, that was good. I said, that was good. Thank you. So just want to put it out there. I'm a little testimonial for her. And if anybody else, please sign up for her. It's right down below there where you can get on her calendar. Any last thoughts, doctor, before we close out for today?
No, I love hearing people's wins. And thank you for saying that. I don't gatekeep. So for me, this is really part of my mission. And the reason why it's 15 minutes is because in my past life as a primary care doctor, I only had 15 minutes with somebody. So now I just give it away for free. Anyone can get on my schedule. We can talk about whatever you want to talk about. If you want to email me directly, you can always email me at info@intuitivemdhealth.com or jump on my link tree for all of my events, my walking game. And so I really love hearing people's wins and connecting with people on this level. So anytime you get something from me, it is for me. So you're not getting, my assistant or secretary, is me connecting, and that visit would be me. So thank you for having me on, and I would happily come back when we have the book done for those methods.
Oh yes, definitely. We want you to come back, Doctor. And congratulations again on your first, individual, like you said, book. That is huge. You're going to get. I told everybody, I wrote the tips down, so you got to get the book now. So we're not going to tell you nothing else till you buy the book when your book comes out. With that said, Barbara, any lasting thoughts, Queen?
Hey, just take care of you. I mean, I think I said at the beginning of the show, so often we take better care of our work things than we do of ourselves. Mm-hmm. So let's take care of you. Yes. So yeah.
Definitely. And thank you again, Queen Dr. Martin and Barbara, and we'll see you at the next Time to Shine.
We'll see you next time. Bye, everybody. Well, goodbye, everybody, and thank you so much for listening to the Time to Shine Happiness Show. I'm your host, Barbara Ellison, and I look forward to seeing you next time, where we will have a great guest talking about making happiness the norm rather than the exception. Because, we believe that each and every one of us deserves to lead a happy, healthy, debt-free, abundant life, whatever that means to you. So join us again. And please, to get reminded, hit the subscribe button or the like button wherever you're listening to us. And we will see you next time. Have a great week. Bye, everybody.